All right, let's talk now about we've been talking Harvey Weinstein, and then I conflated the two and call him Harvey Epstein. But now we're talking about the Jeffrey Epstein files, and Judicial Watch has just announced it filed a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit against the U.S. Department of Justice for records regarding Jeffrey Epstein. And a man who I have the greatest respect for is Tom Fitton, and from Judicial Watch, who's really leading this charge to get answers for the American people. We keep hearing, just wait, the plan is coming together. Don't worry about it. The plan is coming together. Americans just need to sit back. But Tom is not waiting on that, and God bless him for that. Tom joins us now from Judicial Watch. Great to see you. Real pleasure to have you here on the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So why now? Why did you decide to sue the Department of Justice for these Epstein files now?
Well, we saw kind of the mess that happened early in February and asked for records about the Epstein records. We saw the public interest there. So let's use FOIA to get some reassurances to the people that the records are being reviewed under law, and we get a record of what they have and what they don't have and what they don't want to give us, et cetera. And so we filed relatively simple requests, give us records about Epstein. We also wanted records from the Attorney General and the FBI Director about the efforts to produce the records that seemingly were obstructed, according to their public statements by some FBI folks. It's unclear what happened there. And my concern is that we get these, and I'm all in favor of transparency, but when you get these public leaks, you're not sure what you're getting. Right. Are they withholding documents? I don't know. What else is out there? Who knows? Maybe they don't even know. But the FOIA process gives you some more reassurance in that regard. And I would encourage the FBI and the Justice Department to take advantage of this lawsuit, really, to release everything they can under law.
Right. I mean, this sort of gives them a little bit of cover here. I think that's a great point. I hadn't thought about that. Hey, we have these FOIA requests, these Freedom of Information Act requests. There might have been maybe federal agencies that were working with Jeffrey Epstein, confidential informant information that we couldn't release because it could, implicate other people in the agencies. But now our hands are kind of tied because of this lawsuit, and through the discovery process or otherwise, we have to release this information.
It's a straightforward process if there's a commitment to transparency. And I generally think that they do want to release the records, but they're kind of stuck either by the volume or some of the issues related to withholdings that they recognize they may have to make that they weren't anticipating making. And the best way to deal with that is let the public know what the issues are. I mean, we had the JFK records released. We don't know what those were about either. What's been withheld?
Right.
And it's to me transparency 101, which is what's the federal law that applies to the release of government records? Typically, the Freedom of Information Act. Rely on that to get the records out, and that reassures the public generally that there's a process in place that we can go to court if there's an issue, right? At least there's that check. These leaks to date haven't provided that check to the American people, which is why they've been to me, it's one reason why the releases have been received so negatively.
And so who do you think are the parties that would push against this? What are the government's tools to not comply with your request that you would then, what are the brick walls?
I mean, my experience is the resting state of the deep state is secrecy. So everyone doesn't want it to come out. There's always a reason not to release something. And this is why the leadership of the agencies, both the FBI and Justice Department, really have to err on the side of transparency, overrule the exemptions that are typically asserted for documents such as this. I mean, there's going to be a lot of fights about privacy. Whose names are going to be released? People who haven't been charged with crimes, but whose names show up. Well, how is it you release that information? Is there national security information in a serious way here at issue? I doubt it, but much of what we're asking for can be released, and the decision to withhold it is typically purely discretionary. I mean, if someone's Social Security number's there, that might be an issue if they released it. Pretty much anything else they can release at their own discretion.
I mean, when you've pulled the thread on this, are there things that jumped out to you that you want to keep pulling that thread? You find that it's going to lead you down a dark corridor in all of your work on the Epstein story?
I think this is going to be more a straightforward case than people presume. The questions that people have are because of the lack of transparency. And when you have lack of transparency, people presume the worst. And who's to argue with them, since the government's, in this case now, outside the law in terms of refusing to provide information. So the Epstein case is about a politically connected individual who engaged in the worst sort of criminal activity. The feds had him dead to rights. They let him off. He was friendly with a lot of people in power. So there should be questions about what those people knew and when, and what was their involvement with his illicit activities. And some of those answers might be exonerate individuals. There are many people who say, just because I knew him doesn't mean I'm a bad guy. But there are others who probably have reasons to hide. But the concern Americans have is that they don't know everyone who's been involved with him. And their concern is that the government knows more than they're giving up. And the way to alleviate that concern is just to release the information.
From what
just
you've
today,
seen,
Melinda Gates has a new book out saying that, she's completely distancing herself from it. Like, I knew something was off when Bill had this relationship. He turned my stomach. And so we see all of these public figures distancing themselves for that. So that heightens our spidey sense. So we suspect that something is afoul. So you're right. The narrative makes us innately distrustful.
And I was going to play off that a little bit, Tom, which is what Natali was just saying. Are there people, you talked about people who might be exonerated, but are there people who, that you've seen that maybe we haven't, that really should be scared about this, that probably should seek cover right now?
You can rhyme them if you don't want to say their names.
I literally have no idea. What's in the documents? I don't know what's in the documents. And anyone who tells you they know what's out there and what hasn't been released, who knows? When you hear them talk about a truckload of documents, and a handful of those records are released in the first big tranche in February, who knows what's in there? Yeah. And all we can do is just ask for the records under law and get what we're able to get, so at least more questions are answered. Now, are all the questions going to be answered? No. I've been doing this too long to recognize that even if the government releases records, the records themselves are proof for more government cover-ups and such. So who knows?
Yeah.
But the key step is to be transparent.
Yeah. Well, one of the big pieces, people keep talking about the documents. But we know from our reporting that there's, terabytes of video evidence from the residents. Where does the video evidence from his house in Upper East Side and also Epstein Island come into play in your Freedom of Information Act lawsuit?
Well, that's a good question. Typically, if there's video that's responsive, then they should be turning it over to us.
Wow.
I'm also interested in how he died. We're supposed to pretend that was normal. There was nothing normal about it. At the time he died, he was the most famous prisoner in the entire federal prison system. And they let him die. Yeah. Now, by his own hand, it's alleged. Others suggest it was something, and not just some guy in the street suggesting it, but if I recall, was it Cyril Wecht who suggested there was something?
Michael Bodden. Michael Bodden as well.
Botwin. I was thinking of Michael Botwin. Yeah, Cyril Wecht was another.
Yeah, Michael Bodden, one of the famous. Well, I guess what's the word I'm looking for? Not coroner.
Autopsist. I just made that up.
I can't think of the name.
Coroner. Medical examiner.
Medical examiner, yes. Well, I've interviewed him countless times back when I used to work on Fox, and he would, he said absolutely this was not suicide. 100%. This was not.
So what are the
suicide. Even
records
his own
about
brother.
that whole issue? We haven't gotten any records about that. If there are records about the circumstances of his death that have been released under FOIA, I'd be curious to find them, but we're asking for them through this request.
Yeah.
Tom, I'll get you out of here on this. I know you're slammed busy because of this lawsuit and what you're dealing with right now. How do you think Pam Bondi has handled this so far? Handing out these like binders to these like social media influencers and the whole thing. How is this? How do you think it's been handled so far under the Trump administration?
I don't know what was going on there. My impression was there was a lot of pressure and concern that material wasn't coming out, and the Justice Department just pushed out whatever they had sitting around, and to kind of give themselves some breathing room, and it didn't work out the way they anticipated. My view is you should act with due speed, but correctly, to get information out. To reassure the American people that this is being taken seriously. More public commentary, even on the status of the release of this information, would be good as well.
Right. Well, Tom, I'm a big fan. I've admired your work for a long time, so it's a real treat to have you here. And when I saw that you guys filed this lawsuit, I said, absolutely, let's get Tom on the show. So keep us updated. We'd love to have you back on as this unfolds.
We'll see what we get.
Good luck. Yeah. Tom, great to see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.